What's the call?
Free them all.
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 Say drop the charges.
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 When the police say that they're here to protect and serve, they're telling the truth. But what they're serving is the interests of the ruling class, the wealthy, and what they're protecting is their property. So that's why the uprisings were going on. You saw people caring more about shattered windows and property than they did about human life. And so that's why we see this sort of mistreatment. It's the same connection. And we know that the police as an institution emerges out of slavery. And so this role that they play in protecting property has been true ever since black people were property in this country.
Drop the charges.
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 Drop the charges. Stop the repression.
Say it.
Stop the repression.
Say it.
Stop the repression.
What?
Stop the repression.
What?
Stop the repression.
They want you to be scared, right? So those people who were arrested, it's a threat against them. It's a terror attack against them, because having a tank, having a SWAT team roll up on your house is terrifying. And knowing that your comrade has been arrested like that is also terrifying. And there are hundreds of people who were organized, who were there, who were present, who are now aware of it. And there are thousands and millions of people across the country who are now aware of just how threatening they can be. They want us to be scared, and we cannot be scared. We need to keep the fight going.
Justice for Elijah!
Denver police
Say
lie.
justice for Elijah!
Denver police 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 lie.
All right, this is a moment where we gotta get involved, right? We have to be an organization. The only reason we know about Joel and the others is because they're connected to powerful working class organizations like the Party for Socialism and Liberation. I'm a proud member of the PSL. We've been leading massive marches across the country to fight police terror, to hold these murderous killer cops accountable. And if you're really real about the struggle for liberation, about the struggle for Black lives, find someone in a red shirt and get involved. Thank you so much.
A lot of people like to think or like to say that we need to vote for the Democrats to keep us safe and defend us from political repression. But the political establishment in Colorado, and especially Denver, is Democrat from the bottom to the top.
Right.
The governor, a Democrat. The legislature, Democrat. The Denver mayor, also a Democrat. The city councils of Aurora and Denver, majority Democrat. So, the Democrats, they can politically repress us just fine by themselves. They don't need any help from Donald Trump, except to use him as a scapegoat.
Why we're all here. As many of my comrades have mentioned, the city of Denver is a Democratic city. The DA is a Democrat. Right. So do not be fooled by the masks they wear. If you choose to move against them and not agree with them, they will come for you. They have proven it. Us standing here together is showing solidarity with our comrades in Denver and telling them we will not be silent, we will not be complacent, we will not allow them to disappear and silence our voice. This is not the first time that this has happened in history. It has happened throughout time. When we stand up and say, no, it is not okay to murder people. No, it is not okay to silence us. They come and try to oppress us and arrest us. So we are standing strong together, demonstrating that our voices will not be silenced. We will not be held down. We will not stop rallying.
So the only thing to do here is to redouble our efforts, to escalate, to say we're not intimidated. We're not afraid of the police state. We are going to escalate our legitimate legal activity against police impunity, police terror, and this program of retaliation across the country. Bill Barr the other day said that the Black Lives Matter movement doesn't care about Black lives. This corpulent, undead, Jabba the Hutt impersonator, along with Mike Pompeo, sat there and said that the Black Lives Movement doesn't care about Black lives. They're just using Black lives for a wider program to destroy our democratic society. It's actually the inverse. It's actually the other way around. Bill Barr and his cronies and Muriel Bowser, who has demanded that the Trump administration act in a more draconian fashion against the Black Lives Matter movement here in DC, are using Black Lives Matter for a wider program of suppressing and destroying the political left, the anti-fascist movement, and the anti-imperialist movement in the United States, not unlike J. Edgar Hoover's FBI did during COINTELPRO in the 1960s. So again, the whole point of being here is to stand up against this, to get together and resolve that we will redouble our actions.
Throughout the Trump administration, I've heard a lot of talk from people about opposing fascism and standing up to Trump. But these are the people who are doing it. These are the people doing the work. And these are the people who do the work regardless of who is in office, because they understand that justice for Black lives or an anti-war policy is not going to come by voting in a Democrat. It's going to come from organizing in communities and doing exactly the work that our friends, our brothers and sisters in Denver and Aurora were up to. So we stand with them, drop the charges, and I believe that we'll win this one.
Thank you so much, Anya. What's the call?
Freedom all.
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 Drop the charges. Drop the charges. Drop the charges. Drop the charges. And that's what we're going to continue to do. We're going to continue to fight until they drop the charges against Russell Roosh, Lillian House, Eliza Lucero, and Joe Northam. I want to thank you all so much for coming out today on behalf of the Party for Socialism and Liberation.
Basically, in Denver, there were several protesters, anti-racist protesters, who were arrested. And at least 4 of them were people who had helped lead massive peaceful demonstrations around the Aurora Police Department, demanding justice around the police killing of 23-year-old Elijah McClain, a black man who was killed by Aurora police in August of 2019. They were demanding that the Office of Democratic District Attorney Dave Young do something about this. And this was Joel Northam, Lillian House, Eliza Lucero, and Russell Roosh. And these are people, they were arrested, in a Home Depot parking lot. I believe Joel's house had a SWAT team show up. People were pulled over and arrested. This was clearly a coordinated assault of retaliation because of the pressure and of the embarrassment that Dave Young's office and the police had been feeling because of the mass movement that had come into the streets to demand justice for Elijah as a part of this broader swell of protests of racist police terror that's been happening in the country for months now. And these are some very serious charges. Some people are facing felony charges of, riot charges, felony theft, kidnapping. Some people are facing because they stood outside of the police department, and I guess that counts as holding police hostages. I mean, it's just so absurd on its face. But this is clearly not just retaliation against those individual organizers. It's also clearly something that is supposed to send a message. This was meant to have a chilling effect on the movement for Black lives. And that's why we've seen that like we've seen in Denver. It's why we've seen the deep police repression all across the country. We've seen racist vigilante violence, like in the case of Kyle Rittenhouse, who murdered 2 people in Kenosha. But what people should keep in mind is that despite that state violence, which was ordered by Democrats and Republicans, and despite racist vigilante violence, people have still been in the streets, people still have not been cowed. And so what this means to me is that in this moment, it's important that we don't give in to cowardice, that we don't give in to fear, that we be as courageous as those protesters in Denver and keep our foot on the gas and keep up the pressure until we get not only the justice that we seek, but until we can have a new society and a new system where racist police terror and systemic white supremacy are no longer characteristic.